webcast will look at MQ Light. The webcast will be brought to you by Alan Chat from IBM. If you have any questions, please enter them in the questions feature and we'll answer them at the end. For now, I'll pass you over to Alan.
Thank you, Jacinda. So hello everyone. As I was introduced, my name is Alan Chat and I'm the product manager for MQ Light, which is a new offering that IBM has brought to market in September on both as software and as a cloud service. But many of you may be aware of this from our extended open beta, which has been around since about April of this year. So what I would like to do in this webcast is just spend a little bit of time explaining what MQ Light is, why we've felt it important to bring MQ Light to market, and how it fits into the broader IBM messaging portfolio. So we've kind of divided our portfolio into three areas. One that we call enterprise messaging, which is basically a rock-solid, robust, reliable messaging that really connects all the systems and services within an entire enterprise together. And this is where product WebSphere, or IBM MQ as it's now known, fits. It's one that the majority of people will be familiar with. We have another area of the portfolio called mobile and M2M messaging, and this is really about the needs of the Internet of Things and those kind of use cases, and how asynchronous messaging can actually really help there. But where MQ Light fits, and what I'm here to talk to you about today, is within an area of our portfolio that we call application messaging. And what this is all about is less about an entire enterprise and connecting large, big systems together, but more focusing on the needs of developers, of people who are writing applications, and what is it that they need in order to improve their applications, make them easier to scale, make them responsive, or keep them responsive even under load. And this is where we see MQ Light fitting in. And hopefully through the rest of the presentation I can explain how that fits in with our if you like, larger sister product, IBM MQ. So with a high-level overview of what MQ Light is, I think that the best way to summarize it is messaging, asynchronous messaging that an application developer will love to use. So not something that they use because they're told to, use because they have to, or it's some kind of standard, but really something that has all of the ways of working and features and fits into their application development cycle and the way they think, that will make it really easy to incorporate into their projects. So as I mentioned at the outset, this is available currently in two form factors. It's available as a software download, so if you Google for MQ Light, you'll see our community page where you can get hold of a version of MQ Light to try, or it's available as a fully managed service in our IBM Bluemix cloud. So again, if you want to try it out without actually downloading anything, you can just sign up for a free trial of Bluemix and provision yourself an MQ Light service, and away you go without actually having to download anything. And it's worth mentioning that we've made a statement of direction about its availability inside IBM MQ. So basically what we've said is that any application that you develop using MQ Light, using the APIs and protocols that are available to MQ Light, that application will, in a future update of MQ, be compatible with IBM MQ if you already have one within your organization already, or any version of MQ beyond this update. So it really these applications can go right from development all the way up to massive global scale from the infrastructure point of view. In terms of what we focused on to really appeal to developers and actually fit into the way that we know developers are working, the first thing that we've done is made it incredibly easy to just get going with it. There's no complicated install process. We've minimized the download size, and we've gone from a situation where you may have had to configure something, set some things up, to it really is just download, unzip, and you can start writing code there and then. There's no configuration to do from the get-go. The second thing that we focused on is the APIs for MQ Lite. So what we've aimed for here is not a kind of cookie cutter API that we roll out into every language under the sun by some automated process. We've really taken our time to make the APIs feel natural and work as people would expect in the various languages that we support. And the reason that we're focused so much on the API is because as a developer, this is the main thing that you're going to use in relation to a piece of middleware. Is the API is your interface into it, and so we need to make sure that it will work for a developer writing in whatever language they've chosen. And then the final thing that we've done is as soon as you introduce kind of any piece of middleware, any additional tooling to an application, if you like, it adds complexity, and we really wanted to make sure that bringing MQ Lite into your application didn't actually increase the burden on you as a developer. So we've tried to make sure that the tooling that comes with MQ Lite helps you actually solve any of the problems that writing a modular application introduces. So the tooling that we've got is specifically aimed at answering the kind of questions that developers have at development time whilst they're debugging their application, whilst they're making iterative changes. And we can go on and I'll cover that in a little bit more detail throughout the presentation. So this slide, like I say, really summarizes what MQ Lite is, what we've focused on for the first release, and why we think it's important. But before I go and cover some of the detail that lies underneath those statements, I just wanted to spend 5 minutes talking about why did we create MQ Lite. I mean, we've already got IBM MQ in the market, and a lot of people use this. A lot of people are very, very, very happy with it, and a significant number of the world's largest companies basically bet their business on MQ. It's a very reliable, critical part of their infrastructure. And really, the story behind this starts maybe 5-10 years ago. And when you think about how applications were developed back then, IT, like a central IT organization, was very much in control of kind of not only what was developed, but how it was developed, what technologies were used, and there was very strong guidance for developers about what they needed to use, and they just had to fit in with the corporate standards. And this gave us very good economies of scale on reusing a piece of infrastructure, and it meant that we could, as a company, you could standardize around a certain set of skills that were common in the marketplace. If we fast forward a few years, and this is a trend that we've seen happening over the last certainly couple of years, but it's extremely prevalent at the moment, is actually there's been an evolution of this relationship between application developers and like a central IT organization. And I think that's partly driven by kind of lines of business, business sponsors who are suddenly waking up to the benefits that applications can bring to their area of the organization. So, for example, we're probably already all aware of how analysts are describing the shift in IT spend that's now kind of in the hands of, say, marketing, for example. And because of that, and because application developers are being driven by these different requirements from the line of business, the focus has shifted from reusing infrastructure that we already have, kind of optimizing on what we've already chosen to invest in, to optimizing for speed of delivery, speed of prototyping, speed of proving an idea in the market. And because of this, developers are given the freedom to and often encouraged to go off and just pick whatever piece of technology, whatever that happens to be, that allows them to take an idea, from just a concept to a proof of concept to something in early production. And what this has resulted in is a reduced demand for, say, the infrastructure that a company's built up over years, and a developer just picking up a whole raft of different technologies that's going to help them produce a prototype as quickly as possible. The other thing that we've noticed is an explosion of languages. So again, like 5-10 years ago, you'd find pretty much every application that was being developed was in C, C++, Java was coming in, and to some extent C# as well. I mean, these were, and to a certain degree still are, the predominant enterprise languages. But again, you fast forward, and in the last couple of years, what we've seen is an explosion of adoption of just a whole range of different additional languages and environments and frameworks within these languages that developers are using. And the primary reason for this explosion is because just the sheer speed at which you can develop an application. And each one of these languages and frameworks has their own kind of unique way that they bring speed, can accelerate an application development cycle. And they've all focused on various aspects of application development. And consequently, developers will pick the one or two languages that they both feel comfortable with and feel that can really make their idea a reality as quickly as possible. And the challenge that we face as middleware is how do you keep up with this explosion of just in terms of range of languages that the developers are choosing to use. So that's, if you like, the shift and the changes that we've been seeing in the market that has driven us to really focus on the needs of the developer. So I wanted to take this slide to explain how we see the difference in needs and difference in requirements between what we're calling infrastructure messaging or the enterprise messaging and the needs of a developer. So from an infrastructure point of view, as I mentioned right at the beginning of the presentation, this is all about connecting up different systems within an organization, and very frequently this is a business critical systems. These are systems that you absolutely rely on, and you cannot afford to have downtime. And consequently, from an infrastructure point of view, you're focused on ensuring that this messaging backbone is going to be continuously available to your organization. You cannot afford for it to get down. If this thing goes down, you're up in front of the CEO kind of explaining yourself. So in this environment, if you like, change is the enemy. It's a reason that something might go unstable, and so we resist change, we plan change, we make sure that change is well understood, and we know as much as we possibly can about how we're going to change the system before we do so. From a developer's point of view, it's almost the exact opposite. I've got an idea, I've got a rough plan for how I'm going to go and architect this, but do you know what? I'm going to change my mind, maybe every half an hour or so. And change here is an absolute must-have requirement. I can't afford to take 2 weeks to plan a change. I literally need to do it in 5 minutes. And so the kind of things that developers are thinking about when they consider asynchronous messaging, it's all about improving their application. It's not about connecting different departments together. It's how is my application going to benefit from being decomposed and being more scalable and being more responsive for my users. So as a part of work ahead of coming up with MQ Lite, we actually went out and spent some time with developers looking at how they're writing about their use of messaging, how they're actually incorporating messaging into their projects. And there were like 3 or 4 distinct use cases that were really coming through and really prevalent in the development organization, like development teams, which don't necessarily correlate to what we think of when we think of enterprise messaging. So the first one is probably the most prevalent, and we've called it worker offload. But essentially, this is about decomposing your application such that in processor-intensive work, things like image processing and text analytics, that kind of work happens away from the front-end part of your application, such that it can, it can absorb a lot of work, and all of the stuff that is processor-intensive just gets offloaded, and that happens asynchronously. And this not only allows your application to remain responsive, but it also means that you can independently scale up different parts of your application to accommodate the load. Another common pattern that developers are using asynchronous messaging for is actually to create event-driven applications. So rather than having applications which are checking for something that's happened, checking whether a particular thing has changed, checking whether a build's finished or what have you, they just sit there and they get tapped on the shoulder or notified when a particular activity is finished, and so they can instantaneously then kick off their piece of work, the next bit of the process. And again, this is all part of creating applications that remain incredibly responsive. Another thing that we observe people using messaging for is actually just scheduling tasks to happen at some point in the future. It turns out that actually this isn't the most straightforward thing to do, especially on an ad hoc basis for like web or mobile applications. So again, they were using a messaging system to kind of look after that piece of work and then deliver it at some point in the future. And then a final common pattern, which is similar to worker offload, but it was again very prevalent, is that they were using messaging to isolate their application from another system that they needed to interact with. So this way, their application could carry on working, even though, say, a CRM system or an appointment system had gone down or was down for maintenance. They weren't reliant on that system being up all the time, and they were using messaging to act as a buffer, a shock absorber in between them and another application. So just to illustrate kind of that responsiveness, if you imagine this, this is I call it a monolithic application, that a request comes in from a user and it needs to make an update to a database, maybe send something out, interact with social media to send out a post or an update, and then at that point the application can respond. Come back to the user and say, yep, I've done that, and give them the response. So with a monolithic application, basically all of these tasks happen in sequence. So your response has to wait for the database to be updated. It then has to wait for, if it's Twitter, say, Twitter to come back to you. And at that point, you can go back to your user. Whereas if you kind of decompose that application, if you split out the front-end part that receives the request and says, yep, doing that into a small little lightweight front-end component, and then use MQ-Lite to handle the work, passing the work back to a back-end component, and that's going to take care of making sure the database is updated and the post is actually sent. And then use MQ-Lite as that buffer, that mediator in the middle. This is how you can actually afford to go back to your user as quickly as you possibly can, while still ensuring that the extra work happens in the background. So, and that's really what this diagram here is illustrating on slide 11. Is where you actually get that responsiveness speed up from. So to talk a little bit more about specifically what we've done with MQ-Lite, when we say it's easy to get going, when we say we've focused on the getting started experience, what we were really aiming for is something where you could download and actually start writing code within 5 minutes. So everything that we within MQ-Lite to this aim has been with that goal in mind. So one of the obvious things that we had to get rid of was the administration. So as you'll see in the walkthrough that I'll take you through in a few minutes, it really is just a launch MQ-Lite, and you can start writing code from that moment. There's no need to actually define anything or learn some new syntax or configure anything. It literally is just start and code. The other thing that we've kind of focused on, just in terms of making it feel like developers would expect something to feel, the actual APIs, the Node APIs that we have today, they exist. They don't exist as a separate download. They actually exist within the Node package repository manager, so NPM. And what this is it's the place where any Node developer would expect their libraries to be. It's how Node is, all the frameworks in Node expect your libraries to be in NPM. And so we've made sure that this is where all of the MQ-Lite client libraries exist. And then finally, we obviously have tutorials and examples, but we both made those available in all of the relevant languages that we have, and we continue to expand these as we add more languages. But we've actually look to make these examples relevant to like how we anticipate actual use going. So what this is, it means that all of those use cases that I walked you through earlier, we're looking to have tutorials that cover exactly those in some kind of real-world context. In terms of tooling that's actually going to help you during your development, when you're using messaging, it's quite common for these kind of questions to come up. So things like, where did this message come from? Who actually put this on there? Which bit of my application actually generated this? Another thing is, where did that message go to? I know that there was a message that went through my system, but I want to understand who actually consumed it, so I can, maybe determine why that bit of the application had an error or had a failure. And then finally, what message has my application actually consumed? So what was actually the contents of that message? How can I diagnose what happened to my application after the message has already been through the system? So all of these kind of questions is what we've aimed the tooling to answer for a developer. And as you can see, these are all the kind of questions that you're going to have, not whilst you're deploying your application in production, but actually whilst you're developing your application. So that's why we've really focused on these from a tooling perspective, to make it as easy as possible to write these decomposed applications. And then finally, I talked about API or language coverage, and it's what we're aiming for is not just Node, which is where we've started today, but a whole range of languages, a whole range of popular languages, all the ones that developers are choosing to use in their new applications today. So things like Ruby, Java, PHP, Python are all areas that we're looking to have specific MQ-like clients for. And in all of these languages, we want the API to feel natural in that language, feel native in that language. So if, for example, you are a Node expert, the Node MQ-Lite library should feel exactly like you would expect to see it in the context of writing a Node application, which may well be very different, say, if you're writing a Java or PHP application. It is one of the things that we have chosen to do with MQ-Lite is actually use an open wire protocol. So we actually use the AMQP 1.0 specification for a messaging protocol. And what this means is that users can actually create their own client libraries. So if, for example, say you don't like the way that we've done Node, or you don't like the way that we've done one of the ones in the future, you can either take our code or actually create your own, again, using the OpenWire protocol. This also means that for anyone that knows anything about AMQP, there's an open source project that that's all about creating these client libraries in different languages. So you can actually use generic AMQP open source client libraries to work with MQ-Lite. And we've got numerous blogs and bits of documentation that actually help you do this. So, and actually, it's something that people are already experimenting with, already playing with today. And the reason that people like doing this is because it means that from a developer's point of view, you can actually pick up and use this technology and make it fit, really fit into the environment that you're working in. So we've already had people that are using things like Scala or the open source JMS libraries with MQ-Lite, and yeah, they've had some great success, and it's great to see that kind of feedback coming through on the MQ-Lite forums. I won't spend too much time on this, but it's in the spirit of simplicity and ease of getting started. We have simplified, if you like, the number of concepts that a developer would have to learn. So with MQ-Lite, you have a single topic domain where an application just sends messages into a topic address space. And then your receiving applications, they can either have a private, use a private destination with a subscription, and what that means is they will receive every single message that comes through on that particular topic. So as you can see, the example in the diagram here, client 1 receives both of the messages, so it's very much a kind of pubsub paradigm there. So the other type of destination you can have is a shared destination, and in this instance, if you've got like multiple clients sharing a destination, this means that each message that's published onto a topic will only be received by one of the clients that's sharing that destination. So anyone that's familiar with MQ would probably recognize this as kind of like a queuing type behavior. So this is really how you can have a particular workload distributed amongst a number of clients. And this single diagram here is literally the number of concepts that a developer needs to understand in order to make use of MQ Lite. So as I hope is coming across by now, we've really taken a hatchet to every aspect of every concept, every aspect of messaging in order to create MQ Lite as both simple and straightforward as possible, yet still retaining the power that makes messaging useful to developers. So the final bit before we jump into a walkthrough is really about how MQ Lite fits into the wider portfolio. So if you imagine you've got a developer writing an application in their choice of language, and they're using MQ Lite to build that. So it's something they've got installed on their laptop, and they can run tests locally, and they're very happy and comfortable in that environment. In terms of deploying that application, let's say we're talking about a small scale, small type of prototype deployment. It's perfectly acceptable and fine to take MQ Lite, take your development environment exactly as it is, and deploy that into, just pick it up and deploy it into like a small production setting. And that's perfect. It means that you can just take exactly what you've worked on with absolutely no changes and deploy it and see how that goes. And that will work perfectly fine. If you want to deploy, like use some cloud technologies, use a platform as a service to make sure that you're or to deploy your applications, you don't have to worry about any of the infrastructure, any of the middleware at all. You just want all of that taken care of for you. This is where something like the IBM Bluemix platform comes in, and anyone that's logged on there has probably seen the MQ Lite service within Bluemix, and this is exactly what someone coming to a platform like Bluemix would expect. It's a version of MQ Lite that is both highly available and operated and monitored and taken care of by us, but it's automatically provisioned for your application, and you can take your application that you've developed locally, deploy it into the cloud with minimal, if any, code changes to it. It uses the same APIs, same technology. And then finally, there's the kind of statement of direction that we've made around a future update to IBM MQ, which says that actually you will, when this update comes out, you will also have the option of taking your MQ Lite application that maybe is starting to take off in a kind of limited production context, and deploy that against either an existing or a new IBM MQ infrastructure. And what this means is your application can stay the same. It just needs to point to MQ rather than MQ Lite. And it means that you can start to introduce the benefits of like enterprise-grade middleware to your application. So you can horizontally scale the messaging middleware. You can make it highly available. You can do all of the things that you start to consider important at the point where your application takes off. And using MQ Lite in this way means that you, as a developer, you can kind of afford to just concentrate on the application, like safely knowing that you can deploy it to pretty much any scale in a production context using MQ as and when you need to. So at this point, half an hour in, I'd like to take just 5-6 minutes just to walk through that first 5-minute experience, just to really highlight where we've spent our time and quite how different this MQ Lite probably feels to what many people are are expecting if they've used like typical piece of enterprise software, or if you're familiar with MQ, what you might be expecting from that point of view. So to start off, right from the get-go, right from when you Google for MQ Lite and you pick the top hit, which is our community page, you see that it pretty much doesn't look like any normal, typical IBM page. I mean, you can see that there's code right there on the front page. And this is because it really is designed for developers to come and find this and get going without being presented to, without going on some training courses or anything like that. It's designed for a developer to be able to download and get going and really play with it themselves, get to know it by actually using it. And so you can download it for any of the kind of common development platforms that you'd have on your laptop, so Windows, Linux, Mac OS X, if you're a Mac user. And again, that comes down as a zip file. So again, there's no, when it comes down as a zip file, there's no messy installers. There's you don't have to worry about where it's putting files on your hard drive or anything like that. It's just a zip file that you unzip, and then as you can see here, this is a colleague's Linux platform we've got these screenshots from. There's just a handful of scripts or executables, and the two ones that you're mostly interested in are start MQ Lite and stop MQ Lite, and pretty much that's it. So when you launch the start MQ Lite script, what you'll have to answer is just a license acceptance and a couple of questions about security. But the very first thing that it then brings up to you is the tooling, and we've got a couple of tutorials right here built into the tooling. But again, this doesn't look and feel like something that is a typical enterprise system. There's not like 80 million questions or options or things to tweak or things to configure before getting started. What you've got here is a fully running MQ Lite service, and a couple of things that can really help you get started here. So if you were to go onto the Hello World tutorial, what you'd see is it pops up in the context of the tooling that we've got, the web-based tooling, and it gives you the instructions to follow. So for the Node Hello World tutorial, it gives you the code to the exact commands that you need to enter online. It gives you the commands to get hold of the actual Node client libraries, and then you launch those, and you can instantly see what's happening in the UI. So you can see the sending side appearing there, you can see the receiving side appear over there, and you can actually, in the middle, you can see the message that these two have exchanged between them. So that's all very well and good, but obviously that doesn't really help you understand the power of the tooling and what it can do for you. So we've already also created what we called a UI workout. But essentially what this does is it creates a system that puts enough work, enough applications, enough load through MQ Lite that you actually start to see how the tooling can help you. And it's a really great way of developers just kind of seeing how MQ Lite can help them during the development cycle. So in this instance, you can see that there's multiple applications. You start to be able to play around with the ability to filter messages, to see which ones have and haven't been delivered, who they've been delivered to. On the right-hand side there, you start to be able to see how you can filter by a particular receiving client application, and you're starting to see all of these different concepts show up in the UI. And we found it's a really good, quick, simple way of someone getting completely up to speed with what asynchronous messaging can do in their application and how they can use it in their applications, that it's an invaluable part of the MQ Lite experience. So the final bit before I summarize and leave you there is just to say that the documentation, everything about MQ Lite, it is designed to be self-discoverable. There's no training courses that you need to go on to use this. But the actual documentation itself is set up around tutorials and helping developers understand how it fits into their application, as well as the relevant code snippets. So again, you'll probably notice that this type and style of documentation is something that a developer would expect, but isn't necessarily typical of your traditional IBM or enterprise type piece of software. So we've gone to great length to ensure that it really is speaking to and helpful for developers, and that's what we spent a lot of our time validating and going back to developers with. So that really has been a whistle-stop tour of what MQ Lite is and why we've created it, and I hope it's piqued your interest enough to actually go and give MQ Lite a go, or at least find out a little bit more about how it can help and how it integrates with everything. So the two things that I would like to point you to is really the community site, which you can find by Googling, but here's a link to it. And this really is a hub for all of the articles that that I've kind of made reference to, all of the documentation, as well as the MQ Lite download that you can go and get hold of and just give it a go. If you don't want to download something, or you're more interested in how this works in the context of cloud, then I'd strongly encourage people to sign up for the MQ Lite or the Bluemix trial on the IBM Bluemix cloud platform, and then again just give the MQ Lite service a go in that context, so you can pretty easily push an MQ Lite application into Bluemix and see it running without actually having to download anything yourself. And it's a great way of actually getting hands-on with a whole bunch of developer-focused technologies with very little kind of time cost involved. So just to summarize, really, this MQ Lite is all about messaging for developers. It was designed for developers with their kind of activities and mindset at the forefront of our mind. So it has the simplified messaging API. It's easy to get going with and actually pull into your applications. And it really helps you as you're developing those applications. It doesn't just kind of leave you to trawl logs and work out what's happening. It really kind of puts it in front of you, what's going on with your apps. And then the real benefit of MQ Lite actually comes when you consider just the range of deployment options that are then open to you. So obviously, deploying onto MQ Lite, when the update to MQ comes, you'll also be able to deploy onto an existing MQ infrastructure. But equally so, we run and manage a fully managed IBM-hosted cloud messaging service in Bluemix. And again, that could be a really useful platform for applications that you want to iterate on really quickly and push out new versions as often as possible. So again, we're seeing a lot of interest in the cloud services in general, but particularly MQ Lite for these types of applications. So hopefully that there are a lot of questions that you've got from this. So at this point in time, I'd like to pause and hopefully answer a few of them. What I will say is, if anyone has questions who's listening to the replay, or something comes up that you want to ask afterwards, I'd encourage everyone to just go and drop us a line on the forum that's linked to from our community page. We love to get feedback. The development team watch the forum like a hawk. They love answering questions. So yeah, please do drop us a line there, and we'll get back to you very, very quickly. All right, so Tajinda, do we have any questions?
Yeah, we have a few. The first one is, this is the first time I'm looking at MQ Lite. From what I hear from this session is to reduce the administration tasks and easy for development. Will pub/sub be the backbone for MQ Lite? Does it have any benefits or advantages than MQ? And the reason to adopt MQ Lite while using MQ and pub/sub, how is it licensed?
Okay, so there's a number of parts to that question. Let's start with the pub/sub angle. So I'll just flick back through to the slide. So the messaging model that we have in MQ Lite is, if you like, both pub/sub and queuing. So it supports both ways of working. You can You can use it like PubSub with a private destination on for your application. And this is, if you're doing event-driven applications, I guess this is the way that you'd be using it. If you like, the queued way of working, one piece of work goes in and it's given to one specific client is where you would have a shared destination. So it's the second part of this diagram. And so I guess it'd be worth pointing out that if people are familiar with JMS2 and what's happened in the specification there, that's gone in pretty much a similar direction with the idea of a shared subscription. And basically what this pattern does is allow you to share work out between between instances of your clients. So I guess the way that I'd summarize the answer to that question is it's not so much that PubSub in the normal sense of fanning out to lots of subscribers is the way forward, but I do think this unified domain, so where you've combined queuing and PubSub, the flexibility that gives you is certainly the way that I see people going forward, purely because it combines the capabilities of both worlds. So to move on to the second part of the question, which I think was around why adopt MQ Lite in the context of IBM MQ, I think that's a great part of the question. And actually it really strikes at the heart of why we created MQ Lite in the first place when MQ is already out there in the market. I guess it was coming back to the first point where the developers are looking for speed and ability to iterate, and that has been, if you like, our number one goal with MQ Lite is to give them the ability to do that. Whereas with MQ, we absolutely know, and we built up a significant customer base off the fact that actually it needs to be rock solid and reliable. And as I said up front, change is the enemy of stability in that kind of environment. So the way that I see them working together is, it comes back to that statement of direction where developers can create applications using MQ Lite and the tooling that it provides, but those applications are then going to be easy to move into your existing infrastructure, which means that they can share and reuse any investment that you have in IBM MQ, and they will also be able to interact with other MQ applications because it will share the same kind of topic space with MQ. So I hope that's answered your question. If there's any follow-up, again, please, I'll keep pointing people to the forum, or indeed follow up with me directly. My contact details on the front of the presentation.
Okay, another question is, when will you add clients for other languages? In example, Ruby or PHP?
So again, that's a really good question around I guess I wasn't especially clear partway through the presentation, but to date we have, so we will happily work with the generic open source clients, but we only have a client, a specific MQ Lite client for Node.js. It's our intention, and we are kind of currently working on this, and hopefully you'll see some prototypes coming out soon, is to cover the other popular languages with dedicated MQ Lite clients. So these will be, rather than dealing in the generic terms of AMQP, these will be specific for MQ Lite, which means that basically it'll have knowledge of MQ Lite built into the clients and make it even easier to write code to work with MQ Lite. And so while I can't offer a specific time frame that we'll be working to, hopefully you'll start seeing these kind of crop up on the community site kind of over the coming weeks and months. And yeah, if we cover a particular language that you're interested in, then please give us your feedback. If there's a language that we haven't got yet, again, give us a shout. Let us know what you're writing your applications in, so that we know. This entire project is being driven off of feedback that we get from developers. So yeah, that's our number one ask of people that are interested.
Okay, and finally, how is MQ Lite priced?
So that's another good question. So MQ Lite, for a developer, for development use, in fact for any non-production use, it is completely free of charge, unrestricted, and that's available through our community site. Should you wish to put your application in production with the software, that part is available. It's priced on a per install basis, and it's available through the normal channels that you'd purchase in IBM software. It's also worth mentioning that the cloud service is actually, it's not kind of priced per instance. It's actually entirely usage based. So our cloud service currently has it's billed per put or per message that you either put or get from the MQ Lite service, and I think the current price point in dollars is about $5 per million messages, and every month you get a free allowance of 10,000 messages a month. So if your workloads are particularly modest, or you just want to give it a go, again, every month you get this free allowance where you can, where some workloads are actually going to fit nice and easily within that. So it can be a really cost-effective way of incorporating messaging into your application. One thing that I probably should add that I've forgotten to mention throughout this presentation, it's particularly relevant on the Bluemix platform, is that actually we've started to integrate MQ Lite into a set of other development and developer-focused technologies. So people may be familiar with Node-RED. It's a great tool for just wiring together different aspects of your application. It's got some, you kind of have to see it to understand how completely useful it is, but it's a very visual way of wiring together different components or sensors or all sorts of different things. So one of the things that Node-RED can actually connect to is MQ Lite. So we've actually got that ability to connect built into Node-RED, and again, it makes it really easy to wire in, wire your MQ Lite into just different aspects of your application or other applications or anything like that. So again, another way that you can construct MQ Lite and build it into your applications.
Okay,
so,
thank you very much, Alan. Thanks for the great presentation, and I hope everyone enjoyed it. Thanks for attending, and bye for now.